Locke, thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited to be speaking with you and introducing you to the people I know and care about. Your Effortless Mindfulness and specifically your Shift into Freedom book were so transformational for me on my journey to understanding who I really am.
Right.
And I found that effortless mindfulness, and specifically the glimpses that you offer through the effortless mindfulness and through the Shift into Freedom book, gave me an experience of what you call awareness that I had never consciously noticed before.
Right.
And I think maybe when I was young, it reminded me of kind of being a child. And
Yes.
I think there may have been times in my life, I live in the woods now because I loved to go out in the woods when I was a kid. And I would get some of that experience there of experiencing myself without my thoughts. And I was wondering, I want to hear your story of how you came to this and maybe a little bit about what the special sauce is of this.
Yes.
And why it works so well.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that heartfelt, sharing and introduction. And, that's what makes me want to share it, is to seeing people get it and change their life. And because that's what happened for me. And, though I'll share a little about my story, I'm more interested in sharing the secret sauce with everyone. And in fact, I'll start off before I share a story to say, you don't have to do what I did. I already did it. And that's what this kind of books and these glimpses and this mindfulness app is about, is translating the translations of the translations into very experiential ways, and then working with students trying to find different doorways, because not everyone can access it in the same ways. People have different learning styles, and they also have different obstacles or obscurations that, their friend, it works, by doing this glimpse, which takes you within your heart, and another person starts going in and they hit, some emotional block or something, so they go out, whereas the other person opens to the awareness outside and they get a little scared that, like, oh, I'm too spaced out. So okay, so you go in and they'll let your friend go out, but we're both including in and out.
Yeah.
And so that, great good fortune that I had early on to do mindfulness in Sri Lanka. I had started actually with Zen with teacher Philip Kapleau, and I had started even earlier at 16 with TM. But I had, like you, I think, and it's one of the first things I ask people who are in live courses is, let me describe this for you. And now, have you had this experience before, not during meditation, but as a child or in some other form, usually kind of a flow consciousness in nature, doing a sport, playing music, listening to music, some way that these markers of dropping out of the current constellation of consciousness, this kind of self-referential, worried, neurotic sense of self, and yet going into no self, but then immediately coming into an embodied, interconnected, new sense of being. So not focusing so much on the absence, and sometimes, going gradual path through what I call conventional mindfulness or deliberate mindfulness, like you said, you can very importantly realize who you're not. And then effortless mindfulness then gives you a doorway to who you are.
Yeah.
And then, importantly, in including psychology and neuroscience, is not just realizing when you realize who you are as awareness, is not just saying, oh, I'm not the ego. There's nobody here named Locke. There's just awareness, which some people will then stop at. But to realize that you have that this either mind state of ego function or this part of you, subpersonality, that's like, look, I've been trying as hard as I can to keep you alive, and I thought I was you, and what are you going to do, get rid of me? It's like, no, 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 no. You're part of the team. We love you. Now, you don't have to keep being exhausted all the time. You can relax. You can semi-retire.
Yeah.
You can have more vacation and higher pay, and so that's kind of a radical thing, is both discovering no self, but then discovering the foundation of true nature that is then embodied and interconnected with all of your parts or subpersonalities, from the smart ones and the kind ones to the ones who are traumatized, and to the mean ones, to the ones that have been protecting you through being angry and hateful and, like really protective by just, raging. It's like all of those parts are trying to help you feel safe and be loved.
Yeah.
And
So this is really
yeah.
like a combination of a kind of internal family systems approach, along with a deepening of our own sense of who we are, an embodied sense of who we are, would you say?
Yes. I mean, I studied other parts-based psychologies. There are many, from Gestalt and psychosynthesis and Carl Jung and many others, and then met Dick Schwartz and found his language to be simple and kind of catching on nicely. And the two of us taught together for a while. So it's IFS style, though I bring in other types of psychology. But I found it's kind of the missing piece for those who have gone just into consciousness and mindfulness and don't quite know how to come back and live it. So they can do it on the cushion, or they can do it in a long retreat, or they can do it in a cave, or they can do it in a monastery. But how do you do it every day? Because what you see when you're sitting and you deconstruct everything, as soon as you stand up, open your eyes, and start to relate and create, it's not just thoughts, feelings, sensations, and no self. There are these patterns or parts of you that are, the worker and the judge and the one that feels hurt by what someone just said, and they just kind of come and sit in the seat of the self, and you can't just say, well, that's just thoughts, and deconstruct them. You really have to realize, oh, this is a psyche that's part of consciousness that forms into these patterns, but it doesn't mean you either have to go to this pure awareness or you're back in the ego, or you go to pure awareness or you get back in the ego. That now you can say, like, okay, you guys are all part of the team, but you're all burdened by thinking you're me. That's your main burden, is your misunderstanding and this simple case of mistaken identity.
Yeah.
So you're part of me, but you're not the driver of the vehicle, and you don't have to be. You can be part of a team. So this combination of, contemporary psychology with what I haven't talked about in detail, which is the harder part, is this unique kind of consciousness that is a type of awareness, but it's not attention and it's not mindful awareness.
Right.
It's a kind of pure awareness, but then it also has at least two more stages, which is that once you realize there's pure awareness, you realize that what is moving in this aliveness or isn't just moving through the sky of awareness, that it's more like an ocean, so that a thought or a feeling is made of awareness and interconnected as your body, and then interconnected with everybody. So Thich Nhat Hanh has a word called interbeing, which I think is the feeling of interconnectedness, but being that's not a mental manager, but is unique and connected. So it's this new nondual paradox of both and, that allows you to feel safe and realize that you can respond from here without being reactive or creating a mental separate self.
Yeah. I find my own experience of it that I frequently describe it as an intuitive operating system. There's a sense of connecting to what feels like a deep river of compassion. Yes. That is kind of a sense of we're all in this together. Yeah. Not just you and me or people, but all life is in this together. And that is such a difficult thing to put words to. Yes. I'm wondering, I know that in Shift into Freedom, you talk about, I believe it's 4 types of awareness. Yes. Local, spacious, awake, and loving. Is that?
And loving awareness, yes.
Yeah.
And then I think in my next book, I make it 9 types, but this
so
is
many
so I have to try to keep things simple, because kind of awareness starts showing itself to itself, and it goes like, "Ooh, look at this! Ooh, that's a little different. Oh, that's like this." But
right.
But just to follow up on what you're saying is that this isn't about just freedom from the small self or liberation. It's about a fully intimate human life, and the ground quality that you're calling like a river of compassion feels to me like the fabric of unconditional love.
Yeah.
And the radical thing is, but what helps it actually stabilize is realizing, oh, it's not other. I'm the river of love appearing as a unique wave, but I'm not a unique wave that's connected to the river. I'm the river of love, and I'm a unique wave, but mainly like 51%, I'm the whole thing. And that little shift of what's called recognition to realization. Yeah. So you can recognize that river of love, or you can recognize this kind of pure awareness that isn't thought-based, that's spacious and pervasive. And you're like, oh, I think I'm aware of the awareness. And then the question is, well, are you aware of the awareness, or actually are you aware as the awareness? Oh. Yeah. And then from the awareness, what's the relationship to moving sensations, energy, thoughts? So that kind of figure ground shift is this next really effortless mindfulness. And the reason it's called effortless is not because it takes no effort, but because when you discover that, oh, there's an awareness that isn't concentration or attention that's trying to do something, but it's already effortlessly aware without my help. But it's me, and I can be aware from it as it, and it's maintaining itself. So I'm just kind of flowing.
Yeah.
And that letting go, those words, letting go, surrender, turn over, all those words that are like the first move in most spiritual systems is letting go into what? Surrender to what? And so this is saying, yes, surrender, let the awareness unhook from the thinker, and then find itself like air into air, and then realize it's ocean and wave, and then also ground of being.
Yeah.
So this unfolding, and it's, as you said, people have tried so hard and they've not even known it was on the map. And if you've experienced it, you think it's about something else. So you think, oh, it's about the nature. It's about my childhood experience when I was this age because of these people. So, but it's actually those conditions reveal what's naturally here on the subways in New York City.
Right. Effortless mindfulness and the glimpses that you gave definitely gave me that first experience of moving local awareness, which was enough to just kind of, that just, in a sense, built on its own.
Yes.
How do you best explain to people like me when I was in your retreat a few years ago, and I'm asking you, like, how do I get there? How do you explain to them that what felt to me like it's not something missing, it's more like a going completely into who you are? Yeah.
I mean, so it's interesting that in some ways there is a little surrender which relates to kind of the subpersonalities or the IFS style, which is working with the protective parts that are either afraid or resistant or doubting, or, and we all have them.
Mm-hmm.
And then saying, okay, are you willing to give me 3 minutes? Are you willing to surrender for 3 minutes? Like, okay, I will surrender. So, but that surrender is just the initial space. Now awareness has to recognize itself. The surrendering might open, in other words, like it might just open the background awareness, but then there has to be on the map that's not just a gap, that's just not the absence of self, that's not just don't know mind, that's not just not a brief meditation state, but that is already here, that the awake consciousness, the love that we've been seeking is already here within each of us as each of us. So that's just, I present that not as a belief, which is like the religious, you must believe, the awareness that it's like, no, this is a hypothesis, okay? This is reported by people who, certain group of people, and this is what they're saying. So I'm going to just say, check it out. What if this were true? Now the glimpses are these experiments that you do, and then you report the results. So I don't know. And some of them won't work for you, and your neighbors will go like, oh my God, that was great. And you'll be like, oh, I guess I'll never get that again. Everyone else is getting, and then it's like, okay, just realize that's the doubting part. Thank it for its help and try this next one. So that, that, and maybe we should do a glimpse. Do you think we should do a short
I think
glimpse?
that would be great. I was just gonna say that. Maybe we could just go through one for people who are interested. Okay, I'm sure there's people listening who are like, I want to try that.
Yeah, and rather than saying like, oh, listen to them talk about it, even though I have no idea what they're talking about, or I kind of do, but I kind of don't, and then I'll go do it later. It's like, let's see if some people can get this one, which is a little inquiry series. It tends to be one that's a little more of an outer door, but it does come back to the embodied nature if you follow the series. So
sure, sounds great.
So I'll just give the premise again, which is kind of why I thought of this one, because you said, so what if the awake consciousness, the freedom, the love, the interconnectedness, the being, the sense of stillness and peace and creativity is already here within us and is already installed. And all that's covering it is just another operating system that we just have this habit of going to all the time. And that's an innocent reason. It's not bad. It's not, bad ego, or something. But it's just mainly body-based and emotional-based survival program that's trying to make sure we're safe by scanning for danger outside or inside and not missing something that, we could get hurt. So it's so involved, and then it keeps using that system for relationships and for search for meaning and for finding awakeness. It keeps looking, what's the problem? What's the solution? It goes to thought. It goes to memory. It projects into the future. So it's a little problem solver, we'll call it. And it's trying to just say, okay, what's the problem? What's the problem? Is there any problem here? There's pain in the knee. Okay, was that a problem? Do I need to move my knee? Is there a knife there? Okay, no. Okay, what is he saying? Do I understand? Oh, I think I read a book. No, that's not it. Okay. So it just keeps running this program. What if that problem solver could relax?
Yeah.
Just for a few moments. And what if the awareness, the awake consciousness, which is intelligent but non-thought based alertness that is available to you in a flow when you're at your active, open-eyed best, is already here. And then we point to it so that you can feel it, even though it's invisible, and just see if that is the premise. So that's describing the process of this series of inquiries, and then we'll just see for yourself. So when I ask the question, you can understand it with your mind, what's here now when there's no problem to solve, but then look with awareness. Let the awareness feel what's here rather than it being a question for your mind to think about. Yeah?
Yeah.
So the simple inquiry, and you don't have to make a big preparation. You can eyes open or closed. Just simply consider this inquiry and then look for yourself with awareness. So what's here now, just now, when there's no problem to solve? So just letting the problem solver rest. And then just feel what's alert, what's aware. It doesn't have to orient to thought, just to be. And then curiously, are you aware of this awareness that's here when there's no problem dominating? And then what's it like to rest as this awareness? And then resting as this awareness, just welcoming anything that arises. In fact, just curiously, as this awareness, which is primary, is this a meditation state, or could this be more your essential effortless awareness that is your ground of being that's always been here? And so if you're aware of this and as this, and now from this, as this awareness, what's the relationship to the first movement of vibration, energy, sensation, thought, your body, and the room? What's the relationship as the awareness that now is arising as movement, interconnected, not separate, and yet separate on one other level, interconnected on And then what's it like here to feel that equally outside and inside? So you take a little deeper breath as you breathe out. Just relax and make sure you feel kind of equally the awareness is embodied and as well as spacious. And then just what's that quality of being? Do you feel any peace or relief or natural quality arising? Connection or love or joy or and just familiarize yourself with this not as a meditation state, but possibly as the ground or the identity to which other states and subpersonalities can now be welcomed. So if some thought or comes up, instead of getting on the train of thought, you can just let it be part of the movement of the ocean. And you don't even have to particularize it. You can just feel it. Oh, I wonder if I'll be able to do this tomorrow by myself. And just like, okay, that's just interesting. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a wonderful glimpse into awareness. I think for me, the biggest hindrance to that experience prior to actually having it was my own doubt. And I doubted for the longest time that I was doing it right. I'm like, this is it?
Right.
This is it? You know? And that was what would keep knocking me back. Oh, this is a problem, you know? And
right.
now I see that there are still problems, but there's, the mind is great at solving problems, and the ones that it's not good at solving, computers are really good at solving. And so I don't have to worry so much about what the problems are.
That's right.
I'm always curious about ways to share this with folks. And I know this is what you do for a living too, that it is this sense of doubt as being natural and fine, yet also not meaningful.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to give it so much meaning.
Yes. Yeah. So in some ways it's kind of just allowing the type of experience or dimension of learning or the sense door, like the eyes can see but they can't hear. In Buddhism, thinking is considered the sixth sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the senses. So thinking can help with, as you say, some very important ways of knowing. But if you realize that the thinking mind and the doubting mind and, what's called metacognition and is not able to know awareness or being.
Mm-hmm.
Being arises as it, but it can't know it through thought. So thought is just innocently saying, well, don't you want to check to see if I get it? And the key is it can't get it. And so the little rule is you can't go back to your mind for a second opinion about whether you're getting it.
Right.
So this leads us to what you were talking about, which is kind of this continuous intuition or this not knowing that knows, sometimes I call it, or this non-conceptual knowing is what they call it in Tibetan Buddhism, that is prior to thought. It's what thought is made of, and it's wisdom beyond thought. And the key is it's not dumbing down, and it's not, checking out of your intellect. It's just saying, okay, intellect, you do this. In other words, I'll give you one little soundbite is what we're doing here is what AI can't do.
Yes. Yes.
So AI can't do awareness of awareness, and it can't do being.
Yeah.
It can do so much of what we consider knowing and intelligence and functionality, all, but what we're doing is the essential quality of what all cultures and meditation systems, spiritualities, religions have considered the greatest jewel, is knowing who you are, which isn't an intellectual process. So that's the new thing, that there's an awareness that's non-conceptual, that's aware of thought, that could use thought, but it checks with itself more like touch, or like if you're touching something and you say, well, am I touching it? You can kind of check and say, yes, I'm touching it. But then can you feel that you're knowing you're touching without asking your mind? Oh, yeah. Okay, is that bad? Am I kidding myself because I'm not checking with my mind that I'm touching the table? No, that's just another way of knowing. Okay, so it's like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's important. That's the important thing that most philosophies, because philosophers and even translators are so mental and they're so good at that they forget that they don't get that part, because it requires direct experience, and then the direct experience has to validate itself.
Yeah.
So that's the big move. Yeah.
There's, it's interesting to think about the mind as a sixth sense, because there's no way we would ever go, oh, I am everything I hear, or I am everything I taste. I am that awful taste. And we would never feel bad about ourselves for tasting something that was not good. But we have thoughts and we go, oh, that's my thought. I'm that. And in a way that we never do with our other senses.
That's right.
And when you put it in that context, it's very easy then to see, oh, what if I treated this like what I smell and what I hear and what I see? Well, there's just always thoughts there, the way there's always sound somewhere around me.
Yes, but the key is that, and that's some of what is wonderfully done in conventional mindfulness. The key is, well, okay, if I'm not my thoughts and I'm not the thinker, and I think therefore I am is not correct, then who am I? So then you can't just keep realizing, even from a mindful witness, which is another type of awareness, which isn't attention from the mind that is able to, like a flashlight, watch your breath, which is kind of the first practice of developing a certain kind of awareness called attention. Mm-hmm. And then the second move is to kind of step up to the top of the cloud of sensations and thoughts and observe thoughts, feelings, and sensations as coming and going. But even that isn't, then we have to kind of look through that, who's behind the camera, to take that half step back, or turn awareness around, or open up back into that. And as soon as you open up into the boundlessness, it's also equally inherent within the cloud of sensation. So you're not just going to the infinite, you're going to the intimate. And then that ground of awareness, which can you know from here in a way that you trust, like you do when you do something you do well. So if you do something in flow consciousness, whether it's a sport or you play music or something, you've learned how to do it. And the thing is, we've done 10,000 hours of talking, walking, speaking. So if we trust that and then open to this awareness and then just start to, get the body mind online with the new operating system, that's the training of awakening in the world. And then you see the different parts come up, or the thinker try to take over and just say, well, I don't need your help right now. I'm walking.
Yeah.
I know how to walk. Let me walk here. Yeah, but don't you have to think about what you're going to do later on? It's like, no, I've got a phone that I put in like a calendar. There's a calendar there, so I'll pick
that's
that up
that's
later.
gonna take care of that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then that training of being with that awareness becomes like being a master piano player or any other skill, where then all of a sudden you could do it without having to think about it or remind yourself, or it's just the way it is.
Yes.
And that's a really good analogy.
Yes. Yeah. So that really helps people to say, well, if it's so natural, why haven't I recognized it? You keep saying, everyone's saying like, it's already here, it's within us, but we've missed it. And you're saying like, oh, it's because this other system is so strong. Okay, but I still don't get it. I'm still not seeing it. So it's because you can't know it with your mind, and it needs this new kind of knowing, but you've already done it. You've already dropped out of your ego in the thing you love to do in your free time. And not only that, it's not while you're sitting, it's while you're actually most active. And even in sports that are extreme sports, people, are out of their ego. They're doing things faster than they can think.
Yeah.
So this is an optimally functioning forward. So the flow consciousness, I feel, is like forward-facing version, but most people don't know who's doing it. They don't know the awareness that's doing it. And then the meditators are doing the inward finding of the pure awareness, but then they don't know how to get up off the cushion and go walk. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to put the two together here.
Well, in my own life, my spiritual journey started at 19 with a trip to Rajneeshpuram in Oregon, and doing dynamic meditation in a huge group, which as a 19-year-old, it was like a lot of jumping around and dancing and screaming and hoo-hooing and kundalini stuff. And then you just kind of collapsed at the end. And I was like, I had these very intense, ecstatic states that were more like it was just a blissful state. And I chased that for a long time, thinking that was it. Then in my late 20s, I found rock climbing, which gave me a sense of mindfulness that I had never had before, where I focused your mind cannot think of anything else when your entire body is hanging off of a cliff by your fingertips and your toes. And so I got a sense of it there. And then I couldn't rock climb anymore as I got older. And so I just thought, how do I get, it was constantly how do I get back to this? Yeah. And what I found was that there is no getting back to. It's like, it is just always there, but I was getting out of the way enough to let it be there.
That's right.
And I think that's really so many of us spend so much of our lives doing that. How do I get back to something that happened one time and miss the opportunity, like you were just saying earlier, about how it's always there.
Yeah. And I actually do one of the practices based on that, because so many people come with that sense of like, well, I had it once. Like, when did you have it? Oh, I had it as a kid. I had it in this peak experience. And so I have a glimpse called the memory door, where I ask people, okay, we're trying to get what this feels like. So if you know what it feels like, good. Let's start there. Now, close your eyes, and I want you to fully go back there and use your mind, visualize, smell the smells, hear the sounds, go right back there, see all the people, the situations, really let yourself feel that. Now, feel who's feeling it. Feel the being you are. Okay, now start letting go of the visual, letting go of the sights and sounds, letting go even of the ecstasy and the emotional qualities, and stay with the being that was experiencing that then, and open your eyes. And is that being that found that peak experience as a doorway here now? And people will just start crying, and they'll be like, oh my God, what have I been doing? I've been trying to recreate that. It's already here, and they'll literally will drop into their hearts and just go sob or feel like, oh. So that's another kind of, again, it's all designing these kind of contemporary glimpses that build on what are the obstacles or what are the desires, and finding a way to show people experientially that you're already here, but you can't know that. I can't say that. Nobody can say that or read that. Well, it's already here. So if you just realize that that was a peak experience, and you should just realize that that's already here now. Okay, so just meditate on that. It's like, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to go right into the whole thing. And then you got to see for yourself, but on the level of consciousness, not on the level of intellect.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is what you do so well. And these glimpses that work like you were saying earlier, like experiments where there's nothing you need to believe. You could come to this with any belief system, any religion, any way of looking at the world, and try these. And if you try enough of them, you will find one that gives you the experience. And it's just one of the things I love about your work. It's one of the things I love about the heart that you bring to this. There's so much compassion in both your writing and your ness, the way you do this.
That's called Loch Ness. But not the monster.
I love it. It's Loch Ness. There's so much goodness in your Loch Ness. I just want to share your work with everyone I know. I do. People ask me all the time in TikTok lives what my favorite book is. And whenever they say they want a nonfiction recommendation, I always tell them Shift into Freedom. It's just I think it's one of the most important manuals for finding out who we are as people. It's just like like you're fixing your car. You can open it up and just go through it, and it's simple, it's easy to read, it's heartfelt, it requires no belief, simply the willingness to try. I think it's beautiful.
And I wrote that as the first book, and I wrote it as what I call the big book. So it is a little more technical. And then I wrote the little book afterwards, because I thought, if I write the little book, I'll never get to the big book. So let me write the big book. So it is, if it resonates and you can follow it, it's very detailed. The second book, The Way of Effortless Mindfulness, is written a little more breezy, but similar material. And then using something like, going to YouTube or, Mindful Glimpses app that I have will give you, just the experiences that you can go through and kind of take you through without even a lot of written or need for understanding, because I give the introduction, then a glimpse, and then I give kind of a postscript afterwards, an outro, where I'll like explain, and here's what you may have just gone through, but I don't tell you ahead of time what to go through. So you just try this and see what you describe. Use your language to describe it.
And it was actually Effortless Mindfulness that I read first. And then that was what really piqued my interest and got me to have my first experience of awareness that was not simply here.
Yes.
Of actual local awareness, moving my body. And I immediately went to my friend who was a Buddhist monk for 7 years. I'm like, the most amazing thing just happened for me. Have you ever heard of Loch Kelly? And he was like, and then after I read that book, I actually read Effortless Mindfulness twice. And then I read Shift into Freedom. I've read it many times now. Such a good book. Can't recommend it enough. So tell me a little bit about your app and where people can find you online and your work.
And I thought I'd want to share one insight, since your sleep is one of your interests. Can I share that?
Yeah. Let's talk about that. That's right.
Yeah.
We were talking about this before we got started, and I got so enthralled in our conversation, I completely forgot about it.
There's so many directions to go, and I know people have a lot of things to do, but let me just say this. So certainly, in terms of sleep, it's always something as a psychotherapist, working and, I trained as a clinical social worker in New York City. I worked in the North Bronx, inpatient psych, outpatient clinics in mental health, community mental health in Brooklyn, and then up at Riverside Church, which is in Harlem and near Harlem, and, did, private practice. But, sleep is always, as well as sleeping, eating, nutrition, exercise, and meditation are kind of the four big, as well as relationship and work, But so sleep, certainly all the things you've read, there's so much information now. Certainly some people have sleep apnea. Some people, have hormonal situations, especially women who, can keep you up at night. So general stress, stressful situations in life. But in general, trauma from childhood that's unresolved can wake you up. So that needs to be named, as even if you're not stressed, or you make yourself stressed in order to avoid it. So that those parts of us, those exiles that have a view that, I'm not good enough, shame-based parts, or parts that feel, worthless or unheard, unlistened to, or undervalued. And then the next one is certainly not taking a break during the day. Mm-hmm. So if you drive your body and your mind, and if your parts of you drive you to work because you're afraid you get fired, or you're afraid you're, overworking, or you just have such a busy life that you just, I got to keep going. So then, adrenaline and cortisol, your nervous system is on sympathetic nervous system. So even if you try to go to sleep, it's still on fight, flight, or freeze. So it could wake you up. So those are not new. So the main one but the new solution is to do small glimpses during the day, not just at night before bed. Mm. And the reason to do that is because I think one of the main reasons people that get woken up in the middle of the night is because if you think you're your ego or your small part, it thinks it's dying when you go to sleep. So if you don't know your true nature, or at least are comfortable with this natural state of delta deep sleep, or certainly deep rest, awake awareness, and especially if you don't know who you are, when your small parts or your ego wakes up in the middle of the transition during these dream sleep cycles, it will wake you up and go like, where'd I go? What's going on here? Like, I better go do something, like think about work or something, come back to life. Mm-hmm. So literally the parts of you, if you think that's who you are, they will wake you up.
Right.
And so the solution is to become comfortable, and even to go to sleep with a glimpse into awake consciousness. And as soon as you familiarize yourself with who you are as awake, embodied, interconnected ground of being that's safe and loving, then when the parts of you pop up at night, there's a conscious and unconscious, deeper than thought rest that will support sleep.
That's
So
great.
what do you think about that?
Do you have glimpses that you recommend specifically that like to do before bed, or do you find that just anyone that works for someone will work for them throughout the day and before bed?
Yeah, there are some that are better. What I call I can just name them, but I'll record one for you at some point. So what I call the embodiment scan, which is basically, most people do body scans from their mind. Can you visualize your foot? Can you bring your attention to your knee? So you're doing it from here. The
Right.
embodiment scan is you unhook local awareness and you become aware of your face from your face. You become aware of your throat from your throat. You become aware of your arms and your body from within. And you go all the way down. So your awake consciousness is now decentered, but embodied.
Oh yeah,
So
this
gives
is my
you,
favorite one, Locke. This is
yeah.
the one that really that took me there to unhooking consciousness, my awareness the first time, and kind of moving it, and that's the one. So I'm going to encourage people to go and find that video, or I know it's available in lots of places for free, right?
Yes. Usually YouTube.
Yeah. I recommend this one highly because, and I do a version of it in meditations I lead myself now because I found it so powerful. And I could see how that would definitely help.
It addresses the decentering of the mind. It addresses shifting from attention to local awareness, and then you start to realize you're inhabiting your body from the ground of awareness, which is another identity and another type of consciousness that isn't the ego. So the ego is already like, well, I'm already offline. I'm not fighting you for this one because this one feels pretty good. Is this kind of like sleep? Yeah, this is kind of like sleep. Okay, keep going. I'm on board with this one because, I know I'm not being gotten rid of. So then it just transitions you right into, and you're kind of micro releasing stress and treating, the sympathetic nervous system going to the autonomic. You're, letting your breath be full. Yep.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That's a great recommendation. Thank you. So you have a website at lochkelly.org.
lochkelly.org. It's a 5013C nonprofit. So it's, everything I do is for the benefit of others and try to, put out as much free content and then support the whole. But the idea is trying to offer things online in visual, written, audio, but direct practices, some online courses, some in-person weekends, and some longer, more advanced retreats once people have a sense of it. The thing is trying to bring it into a format that's available, that's simple, that's elegant and effective, usable, so that people can see if it's for them. So the Mindful Glimpses app is probably the simplest way, and it's available to people that for scholarship or free, and you can try it out and go through courses. There's an introduction. There's daily glimpses that are different each day.
Awesome. So, and people can find that on your website or in the app stores, Apple, Google, all that stuff.
On both app stores, Google and
Wonderful.
And Apple, and on website as well.
I can't wait to see it. That's so great. That's so great. Well, Locke, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your heart, your knowledge, your ness. your Loch Ness. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I hope to do it again sometime.
Great. Yes, thank you, Erik. Really wonderful to be with you and see your shining radiance from within.
Thank you. Thank you so much.